Welcome to The Rise with Sterling Phoenix. This is the show for ambitious leaders and bold professionals who want clarity, momentum, and results without burning out. Each episode, we cut through the noise and get to what actually works. Whether it's resetting from burnout, leading with influence, sharpening your message, or building systems at scale. No hype, no fluff, just clarity you can use right now. This is The Rise. Let's go. Not knowing your customer doesn't make you humble. It makes you negligent. And negligence is how companies bleed money, burn teams, and miss the mark while competitors eat their lunch. Welcome to The Rise with Sterling Phoenix. This is a fire episode. Bold insights, hard truths, and clarity that stings but sets you free. And today, we're calling out one of the biggest lies in leadership. Quote, we're still learning about our customer. Sounds noble, right? Iterative, curious, open-minded, humble even. But here's the truth nobody wants to hear. If you're still guessing at who your customer is, you're not humble. You're reckless. And because the tools are there, the data is there, the conversations are available, you just haven't done the work. And that negligence, it's costing you every single day. Every dollar, every campaign, every team member who burns out executing strategies that no one believes in. Today, I'm going to show you exactly why customer ignorance is strategic negligence, why we're still learning is often a cover for laziness, and what real customer knowledge actually looks like, the kind that drives revenue, not just engagement metrics. This one's going to sting. But if you're ready for the truth, let's go. Let me start with the pattern I see constantly, the one that kills more startups and stalls more growth than anything else, the founder's fallacy. The belief that you, the founder or leader, are representative of your customer. Here's how it plays out. You built this product because you had the problem, you experienced the pain, you wanted the solution. So you assume, oh, if I wanted this, then other people like me will want it. And sometimes that's true for about 50 customers. Then it stops working because you're not your customer. You're more technical than your customer. You understand nuances that they don't even care about. You're also more risk tolerant than your customer. You'll try beta features, they won't. You're more forgiving than your customer. You'll work around bugs, they'll churn. You're also more invested than your customer. This is your life's work. For them, it's just another tool. And you've had infinite context about why things work the way they do, and they have none. So when you build for yourself, you build features nobody asked for, complexity that nobody needs, messaging that resonates with you but not them, and pricing based on your perceived value, not their willingness to pay. And then you wonder why adoption is so low, why churn is crazy high, and referrals don't happen because you're not your customer. And until you accept that, you'll keep guessing instead of knowing. Let me be brutally clear about something. Guessing is not strategy. And too many leaders hide behind hypothesis and exploration as cover for not doing the hard work of segmentation and validation. Here's what guessing looks like. You don't know which buyer actually has budget authority. So you target marketing managers when the CFO makes the call. You don't know which pain points they'll pay to fix tomorrow. So you pitch features when they need risk mitigation. You don't know what credibility signal makes them say yes, so you lead with your story when what they want is social proof. That ignorance costs you every day, every dollar, every campaign. And here's the dangerous part. Guessing feels like strategy when you dress it up. Oh, we're testing multiple personas. We're exploring different value propositions. We're in discovery mode. All of that sounds strategic. That sounds iterative. That even sounds like lean startup methodology. But it's not. It's procrastination with a framework. Real strategy says we know our economic buyer is the VP of sales in companies with 50 to 200 employees. Or we know the urgent pain they'll pay to solve is pipeline visibility and forecast accuracy. Or we know the credibility signal that makes them trust us is a case study from a competitor they respect. That's knowledge. That's precision. And that's strategy. Everything else is just expensive education. Now, let me break down the three types of customer ignorance that kill companies. First off, you don't know who has budget authority. You're selling to users when buyers make decisions. You're targeting managers when executives control the budget. You're building for influencers when economic buyers need different proof. The result? Long sales cycles, deals that stall, and quote, we love it, but procurement won't approve it kinds of replies. Now, number two, you don't know what pain they'll pay for. You're busy pitching features when they need outcomes. You're solving problems they don't even care about while missing the ones keeping them up at night. And you're offering improvements when they need a complete transformation. The result is they come back to you and they say, interesting, but not a priority right now. The translation of that, not painful enough to matter. Next. Number three, you don't know what makes them trust you. So you're busy leading with your credentials when they want social proof. Or you're showing product demos when they want to know about risk mitigation. Or you're talking about your vision when they need actual proof it works from people just like them. The result is they come back and say to you, oh, well, let us think about it. The translation of that, we don't trust you enough. Now, let's talk about the excuses I hear most often. We're being humble. We're staying curious. We're not making assumptions. Oh, all of that, it sounds great. But here's the reality of it. Humility isn't the problem. People are just being lazy. True humility says, I don't know yet, but I'm going to go find out now. That means they're going to be booking customer calls this week, not next quarter. Or they're asking hard questions and listening to uncomfortable answers. Or they're testing hypotheses in the market, not in strategy decks. And it also means changing your mind when the data contradicts your assumptions. True humility is active, it's disciplined, it's urgent. On the other hand, negligence says, oh, we'll figure it out as we go. Well, what that really means is we'll learn from the market. Or, translation, we'll just burn some budget guessing until we figure out what might work. Or, quote, we're testing multiple approaches, which means we're not committing to knowing. So if it doesn't turn out right, it's not really our fault. It was, quote, an experiment. Or our customers are diverse, which is just a sad translation for we haven't segmented. Or we're still iterating on positioning, which means we haven't done our work. We haven't validated anything yet. Negligence is passive. It's comfortable, but it's expensive. It burns your budget. Now, here's how you tell the difference. True humility looks like booking 5 customer calls this week and then recording them, transcribing them, and analyzing the exact language, and then testing messages in the market with real budget, and then iterating based on response data, not just opinions, which then means tightening your focus based on what was proven to work. On the other hand, negligence looks like spinning up another survey nobody is ever going to fill out. and then holding another internal strategy meeting and creating a bunch of personas based on some assumptions that you're making, and then launching campaigns to quote, see what happens, and then blaming the funnel when nothing converts. And here's what negligence costs. Well, the first one, big time, money. Every single campaign to the wrong buyer with the wrong message is burned cash. You might as well just make a fire in your office. The next thing is time. Every single quarter spent, quote, figuring it out is the time competitors use to dominate. And then there's team morale. People can absolutely feel when strategy is built on guesses and they lose faith, and your best people leave. And your market position, because while you're learning, someone else is owning your category. And it's killer for your career trajectory because boards of recruiters see 3 years still pivoting and just move on. All right, enough diagnoses. Let's talk about what real customer knowledge looks like. Not personas, not assumptions, not borrowed wisdom from a consultant deck. Like actual validated market tested knowledge that drives real revenue. So, step one, you got to stop hiding and start segmenting. I mean, real buyer profiles, not some kind of fluffy personas. Forget, quote, marketing Mary with her hobbies and her favorite coffee. That's storytelling, not strategy. Here's what matters. You need to go figure out who signs the check. That's your economic buyer. Everything else is secondary. And then who influences the decision? Those people are your champions. They advocate but don't approve. And most importantly, who can block the decision? Because those are your detractors. IT, procurement, compliance, whoever in that account can say no. And you map all three and you build strategy for all three, but you prioritize the economic buyer. Most companies out there are making the mistake of building for influencers and wondering why deals stall at procurement. Well, because procurement wasn't in your segmentation. You never built actual messaging for them. You never addressed their concerns. And that's not a sales problem. That's a segmentation failure. Now, step two, get out of the building and start talking to actual customers. Not someday, not when you have time. I want you to do this week. You need to go book 10 raw customer conversations. And I'm not talking sales calls, I mean actual research calls. You need to say something like, I'm trying to understand the problem you were facing before you found this. Can you walk me through what was happening? What did you try? What wasn't working? And you need to record that conversation and then transcribe it because what you're doing is mining for language. You're looking for the patterns. You want to figure out what phrases do they repeat? What problems do they describe first? What outcomes do they care about most? What objections surface repeatedly in that conversation? And what alternatives did they consider? Now, that's a great use of AI, just as a little side tip there. This works because 10 raw customer calls will teach you far more than 10 strategy decks or umpteen queries to your AI. Because what you're going to hear is the actual language your buyers use, not marketing speak. And the real problems they're trying to solve, not just what you think they should care about. And the proof points that made them actually trust you and sign on the dotted line, not what you assume matters. All of that is gold, and that's what strategy should be built on. I know. You're thinking, we don't have time for 10 calls. Well, here's the hard, cold truth of that. Then you don't have time to succeed. Because every campaign you launch without this knowledge is just gambling. And every message you craft without using their language is guessing. You're spending thousands on ads, if not tens of thousands, and even more on team salaries. But you're telling me you don't have the time to invest 10 hours in customer conversations? Well, that's negligence. Okay, now, step 3. You need to test your message where it matters, in the actual market, not in focus groups, not in stakeholder reviews, in actual buying scenarios. Now, here's what to test. First, does your positioning earn replies, not just likes? Run cold outreach with your hypothesis and then track your response rate. If it is under 5%, your message is not resonating. Next, does it open doors, not just feeds? You need to run targeted ads to your economic buyer. Track not just the clicks, but actual qualified conversations booked. And third, does it create urgency? You need to track the time from the first touch to the demo request. If people are thinking about it for months, the pain isn't urgent enough. Now, market validation is brutal, but that's why it works. The market doesn't lie. It doesn't say, quote, interesting just to be polite. It either engages or it ignores you. And when people reply to your email and book your demo and ask about pricing within a week, well, you validated customer knowledge. When they like your post, but they never convert, you're just still guessing. Now, the fourth step is about continuous improvement. You need to refine, you need to cut, and then you need to double down. This is not a one and done process, it's a continuous loop. Every single month, you need to stop and analyze what worked, which messages, which channels, which segments. Kill everything that didn't. No sunk cost fallacy. And then double down on what is actually proven. Scale your winners. And then run new tests on the edges so that you can stay sharp and keep learning. And then every quarter, you go back and you revisit your segmentation. Have the dynamics shifted? And then refresh your customer conversations. You need to figure out, are pain points evolving in this fast changing market? And validate positioning. Is that message still resonating? This loop is your lifeline. It's how you maintain customer knowledge as the market shifts. Now let's talk about what customer ignorance does to your leadership credibility. Because this isn't just about campaigns that don't work, it's about trust that erodes. When you present to your board and you're asked, who's the buyer? What pain point are we solving? Why would they choose us? And your answers are vague, theoretical, or worse, hedged, they know. They know you're guessing. They know you haven't done the work. And their confidence in you drops. Compare these answers. When you're guessing, you say, quote, we're targeting mid-market companies who need better efficiency in their operations. But if you're knowing, you say, quote, our buyer is the VP of operations in companies with 200 to 500 employees. The pain we solve is the 15 to 20 hours per week that their team wastes on manual data reconciliation across systems. We know this because we've interviewed 40 of them. Our win rate is 67% when we get to that buyer. It drops to 12% when we start with IT. The first one is strategic theater, and the other is command of your market. The other part of this is that your team knows it. When you're launching campaigns to, quote, test the market for the third consecutive quarter, they know you're just guessing. When messaging keeps changing because nothing is resonating, they know you don't have clarity. And when deals keep stalling for, quote, unknown reasons, they know you haven't done customer research. And that's when your best people leave. Not because of comp, not because of culture, but because they're tired of executing strategies that are just built on assumptions. They want to work for leaders who know their market, who have real conviction, who can point to data and say, this is why we're doing this. When you can't do that, your A players find someone who can. Now let me share some uncomfortable truths about customer knowledge that nobody likes to talk about. First off, most founders build solutions looking for problems. You fell in love with the solution, you built something cool, and now you're trying to find people who actually need it. Well, that's backwards. And it's why customer discovery feels so hard. because you're trying to justify what you already built instead of building what people actually need, want, and will pay for. The second truth is your early adopters aren't actually your market. Those first 50 customers loved you because they're innovators. They tolerate rough edges and they give feedback and they co create. But they're 2% of the market. The other 98% won't behave like them. And when you build your entire strategy around early adopter feedback, you optimize for the wrong segment. Now, truth number three, customer knowledge is perishable. What was true 18 months ago isn't necessarily true today. Probably highly unlikely in this current market. Pain points are evolving fast. Alternatives are emerging even faster. And budgets are constantly shifting, and priorities are changing even faster. So if your last customer research was 2 years ago, it's outdated, and you're operating on expired knowledge. Now, truth number four, you're probably talking to the wrong people. You're interviewing people who already use your product. They're validating your worldview. But what about the people who chose your competitor, or choose to do nothing, or never even considered solutions in your category? Those conversations are where real insight lives, and most companies never have them. So let's bring this full circle. First of all, you're not your customer if you're a founder, so stop building for yourself. And guessing is not a strategy. There are three types of ignorance that is killing companies: not knowing who has budget, what pain they'll pay for, and what makes them trust you. And then there's humility versus laziness. True humility does the work now. Negligence says we'll figure it out. The real work is about segmenting actual buyer roles: the economic buyer, the influencer, and the blogger. You need to get out of the building and talk to customers. 10 conversations minimum. That includes customers who did not buy from you. Validate in market, not in meetings. Replies and conversions, not just likes. And tighten continuously. You need to do monthly refinement and quarterly refreshes. And the true cost? Boards, recruiters, teams, they all can smell customer ignorance, and it bleeds credibility. And the uncomfortable truths are the fact that most founders build solutions looking for problems. And early adopters are not your market. And customer knowledge expires. And you're probably talking to the wrong people. So, here's your test right now before you do anything else. Ask yourself, can you answer these three questions with precision? First, who is your economic buyer? Not a persona, a specific role with budget authority. Second, what urgent pain do they pay to solve? Not a value proposition, a specific problem costing them real money, time, credit, or even credibility right now. And then third, what proof makes them believe you? Not what you think should matter. What is actually closing deals? If you can't answer all three with clarity and confidence, then you need to stop everything you're doing. And you need to go book 5 actual customer conversations this week. Not this month, this week. Record them. Write down the exact phrases. Map their language and understand their context. Build your next move from those real words, not your guesses. Because every day you operate on assumptions instead of knowledge is a day you're just gambling away resources and careers and market position. And I'm sorry, but that's not humble. That's not curious. That's just negligent. And negligence costs trust and money and time you can't ever win back. So here's the one thing I want you to remember from all this. Not knowing your customers in humility. It's negligence. You need to remember that. And negligence is how good companies with smart people still fail. Because they guess instead of know. They assume instead of validate. And they hide behind we're still learning instead of doing the uncomfortable work of customer research. It may not be glamorous, but it works. So don't be that company and don't be that leader. Get out there and do the real work. get the knowledge, and start building with precision. Because that's how you win, and that's how you scale, and that's how you build something that actually lasts. Thanks for listening to The Rise. So take a moment, subscribe on Substack, and I'll see you next time. Here's the truth. Good is crowded. Burnout is optional. Leaders rise when they choose clarity. This is The Rise.